introduction to the Fair Deal discussion. My name is Bob Ward. I'm the Policy and Communications Director at the Grantham Research Institute on Climate Change and the Environment at the London School of Economics and Political Science. And we're very lucky to have a distinguished lineup of speakers here in Baku at COP29, where we're going to have a couple of opening remarks from two of the leading politicians in the fight to protect and preserve the Congo Basin rainforest, which I'm sure you don't need reminding, but is the second largest rainforest area in the world and enormously important to the global battle against climate change. We're going to have then some presentations of the latest science on natural capital calculations of the Congo Basin rainforest. And I think it will demonstrate that the value of the Congo Basin rainforest intact and the services it provides is far more valuable to both the Congo Basin nations, but also to the world because of the value they have, and that unsustainable agriculture and timber practices that cause deforestation and reduce and degrade the Congo Basin rainforest are actually a bad deal both for the Congo Basin nations and for the world. And we hope that this discussion will help strengthen the ongoing discussion about how to protect the rainforest, and indeed the very important issue of how the rich countries in particular can invest and support the Congo Basin nations, both in their ambitions for sustainable development and the protection of the rainforests themselves. So we're going to start with some opening comments from two ministers. We are scheduled to finish at 4:30. I'm going to try and keep on time. So I'm going to ask speakers to try and keep to time so that we have plenty of time for discussion and then we can finish on time. So it's my pleasure to start by inviting Minister Ndongo to the stage. He's the Cameroon Ministry of Forestry and Wildlife Minister, and he will be speaking about the importance of the Congo Basin rainforest. So, Minister, please come to the stage.
Okay, thank you, Bob, for inviting me to attend this side event on the occasion of COP29. I brought an English version, which is available, and you'll get it at the end of my presentation. C'est donc pour moi, do you get me? C'est donc pour moi un grand honneur et un privilège que de prendre la parole ce jour à l'occasion de ce side event pour cette COP29. Nous allons discuter de l'importance des forêts d'Afrique centrale et de l'urgence d'un soutien financier accru pour leur gestion durable. Nous sommes ici aujourd'hui pour reconnaître non seulement la valeur de ces écosystèmes, mais aussi les moyens d'assurer leur protection ainsi que leur contribution au bien-être de notre planète et de l'humanité tout entière. Les forêts d'Afrique centrale, notamment celles du bassin du Congo, sont aujourd'hui au cœur de l'équilibre écologique mondial et de la prospérité locale. Voici cités quelques éléments qui indiquent leur importance. D'abord, ces forêts sont un réservoir de biodiversité. Elles sont parmi les plus riches en biodiversité au monde. Elles abritent une multitude d'espèces endémiques et rares, des plantes, des animaux, micro-organismes. Et cette biodiversité exceptionnelle est indispensable pour la résilience écologique, pour la santé globale des écosystèmes. Ensuite, ce sont des forêts qui constituent un stockage du carbone et de régulation du climat. En effet, les forêts d'Afrique centrale sont des puits de carbone d'une importance inestimable puisqu'elles absorbent près de 1,1 milliard de tonnes, ce sont les chiffres de la Comifac, de CO2 par an. Avec leur bilan net positif en carbone, elles surpassent en capacité d'absorption des émissions de CO2 même les forêts d'Amazonie. En stockant environ 60 milliards de tonnes de CO2, y compris 30 milliards dans leur tourbière, ces forêts jouent un rôle de poumon crucial dans notre lutte contre le changement climatique. Ensuite, ces forêts sont un instrument de régulation des cycles hydrologiques, puisqu'elles influencent les cycles hydrologiques en assurant la régularité des précipitations, la préservation des bassins versants et la filtration naturelle de l'eau, qui, elle, est essentielle pour des millions de personnes qui dépendent de cette ressource vitale. C'est également une source de subsistance pour les populations autochtones et les communautés locales. En réalité, à ce stade, les forêts jouent le rôle de pharmacie, de garde-manger, d'abri même pour et les animaux et les populations locales. C'est également une valeur économique et potentielle de développement. Je m'explique. En plus des produits forestiers, comme le bois, les huiles, les gommes, ces forêts offrent des opportunités pour les industries durables, notamment l'écotourisme. Une exploitation responsable peut générer des revenus tout en assurant la préservation de ces ressources. Elle joue également un rôle dans la prévention de l'érosion et la stabilisation des sols. Par la stabilisation des sols, les forêts limitent l'érosion. Elles préservent les terres cultivables et réduisent les risques d'inondation et de glissement de terrain, assurant ainsi la sécurité agricole. Elles ont également une importance spirituelle et culturelle. Ces forêts représentent un patrimoine sacré pour les populations autochtones et les communautés locales, portant des significations culturelles et spirituelles profondes qui sont des symboles de tradition séculaire et millénaire. C'est également un potentiel médicinal et de recherche. Les forêts du bassin du Congo regorgent de plantes médicinales aux propriétés thérapeutiques uniques. La recherche dans ces ressources pourrait révéler des traitements pour des maladies graves, renforçant l'intérêt global pour leur préservation. Enfin, l'équilibre écologique régional en soutenant des écosystèmes interdépendants avec les savanes et les zones humides voisines. Les forêts du bassin du Congo jouent un rôle dans la préservation de l'équilibre écologique de toute la région. Maintenant, le second aspect, c'est que pour la préservation, elles ont nécessairement besoin d'un financement accru pour que la gestion durable soit assurée. Des ressources insuffisantes pour l'instant pour la conservation et la gestion durable. Les pays du bassin du Congo, à l'expérience, disposent de ressources plutôt limitées pour protéger ces vastes étendues forestières. Un financement accru permettrait d'améliorer la gouvernance forestière, de renforcer la surveillance contre la déforestation et d'assurer l'application des lois pour protéger ces écosystèmes. Inégalité dans le financement global des forêts tropicales. C'est une problématique que nous connaissons depuis longtemps et sur laquelle nous voulons sensibiliser nos partenaires, notamment des pays occidentaux, pour dire qu'en comparaison avec l'Amazonie, les forêts du bassin du Congo ont reçu beaucoup moins de soutien financier international malgré leur importance cruciale. Une étude comparative sur les financements entre 2008 et 2017 montre que le bassin du Congo n'a reçu que 11,5% des fonds internationaux alloués aux forêts tropicales, contre 54,5% pour l'Asie du Sud-Est et 34% pour l'Amazonie. Il est donc essentiel pour nous de rééquilibrer les ressources internationales pour assurer la protection du bassin du Congo. Ensuite, les estimations du montant nécessaire. Nous pensons qu'une demande autour de au moins 5% des financements mondiaux pour le climat, 100 milliards US dollars par an, soit environ 5 milliards de dollars par an, soit dédiés aux forêts du bassin du Congo. Ce montant permettrait de couvrir les besoins en conservation et en gestion durable et permettrait à ces forêts de continuer à jouer leur rôle de puits de carbone. Le bilan carbone des pays du bassin du Congo s'élève à plus de 610 millions de tonnes de CO2 par an. Si le prix du carbone de 5 dollars par tonne CO2 sans certification est appliqué, les pays du bassin du Congo pourraient bénéficier à terme de 3 milliards de dollars de tonnes CO2 supplémentaires et si certifié, ce prix serait de 10 dollars de tonnes CO2 pour les mesures de protection. Ce serait 6 milliards de dollars par an. En plus, la reconnaissance de leur bilan carbone positif pourrait permettre aux pays du bassin du Congo de recevoir entre 3 et 6 milliards de dollars par an pour leurs services écosystémiques en fonction d'un prix de 5 à 10 dollars par tonne de CO2 séquestré. Ce financement représente non seulement un investissement pour le climat mondial, mais aussi un soutien de développement socio-économique pour les populations locales. Vous devez savoir que toutes les politiques mises en place dans le cadre et des plans d'aménagement et la mise en place des aires protégées prennent en compte les intérêts des populations autochtones et locales dans un montage bottom-up. En conclusion, les forêts du bassin du Congo, les forêts d'Afrique centrale, constituent aujourd'hui un pilier pour le climat global et le bien-être de nos populations. Leur destruction ou dégradation aurait des effets irréversibles, entraînant non seulement une perte de biodiversité, mais aussi une libération massive de carbone dans l'atmosphère. Il nous semble donc nécessaire, voire impératif, que la communauté internationale soutienne de manière significative la protection de ces forêts et veille à la durabilité des efforts de conservation. J'en appelle donc à un engagement mondial renforcé pour protéger le bassin du Congo, car sa préservation n'est pas seulement un enjeu régional, mais une responsabilité globale. Pour cela, nous pensons qu'il est temps de passer du modèle paradigme de compensation à un modèle d'investissement. Car en investissement dans ces forêts, nous investissons pour l'avenir de notre planète. Je vous remercie de votre bienveillante attention. La version anglaise est disponible, je l'ai dit.
Thank you very much indeed, Minister, for that very clear exposition on the value and importance of the Congo Basin for us. And thank you again, Minister, for your ongoing leadership on this issue and for maintaining the fight for so many years, remaining so committed. So it's now my pleasure to invite to the stage the Honourable Dr. Christian Rock, who is the former facilitator on behalf of the Congo Basin, for the Congo Basin, the Congo Basin Forest Partnership on behalf of Germany, who's going to talk about the importance of the deal, a fair deal for the Congo Basin countries and the international community. So please take the stage.
Thank you. Thank you, Bob. Dear Minister Doré, dear Minister Hélène Pierre, ladies and gentlemen, dear Secretary Executive, ladies and gentlemen. I think Minister Doré has very clearly explained that the services of the Congo Basin forests are crucial for the climate, crucial for the rainfall patterns, crucial for the biodiversity, and not replaceable. And this is really a global issue, but it's not only a global issue, it's also an inter-African issue, because we have learned in the last 10 years that the eastern Congo forests, Congo Basin forests, are crucial for the rainfall in Ethiopia. The rainfalls in Ethiopia are a contributor to the Nile, and so it's also a crucial thing for security. And the western part of the Congo Basin forests are crucial for the rainfall patterns in Nigeria, for example, which is also a very high risk. And so these forests are crucial for the world and are crucial for Africa in a sense of climate mitigation, but also for biodiversity and the rainfall patterns. But these services are not well paid. And that is also the most crucial thing when it comes to this question, what is this a fair deal? The minister mentioned that the tropical forests as a whole and the Congo Basin especially are somehow the forgotten children of the climate negotiations for many, many years. And the climate budget gives only 3% for the tropical forests in these days. And we have also learned in the Congo Basin Forest Partnership that for the Congo Basin, if you count all contributions of the donors of 25 years together for the green sector, you come up with a figure of 3 billion euros. And this is in the contrary to what the value is. Yeah? And you mentioned it is not 3 billion in 25 years. It is at least 5 to 6 billion per year for the Congo Basin and 25 for the whole tropical forests alone. If you take a basis only the superficial, the size of the tropical forests, but the quality, for example, in the Congo Basin is incredible, because it is now the only tropical forest to attract CO2 emissions of other countries. So we have this huge problem, and it is the consequences are very clear. If you do not pay for a service, if you do not pay for a good, and if you do not pay for a public good, you will lose this good as soon as you have alternatives. And of course, the Congo Basin has alternatives. It is normally a rich region of the earth with many things to sell. So, therefore, we need a shift of paradigm, not a big concert of many more or less small projects and programs, but a fair payment of ecological services on a large scale. And this is, I agree, this is of course an investment, because the Congo Basin forest is an infrastructure. It is a very huge and very important infrastructure for the whole life in Africa and in the world. And you can, if you do it sustainably, you can also feed your development, your economic development, by conserving this forest. But the precondition is that there is a fair deal and with international society. And this is exactly what the core of the declaration of 2021 of the COMIFAC countries is. The fair deal is a nickname. It's a nickname, but the long name is engagement, declaration of the engagement of the countries of the Congo Basin, and a demand for, appeal for a just and fair percentage and share of the climate, of the global climate budget and of the global biodiversity budget. This is called the fair deal because we are politicians and we need also some kind of short name to go into the battle. So, and therefore the pledge, the famous pledge, we struggled before and afterwards, the famous pledge was always thought as a signal, not as a deal. It is a signal to show, yes, we are ready to make a deal with the Congo Basin. And therefore, the work continues. We did a lot work upon the open questions because a deal on this size and this amount of financement, which would be in the game, has many open questions. There is, for example, a mistrust between the donor countries and the Congo Basin countries, and this mistrust has to overcome. But there are also questions of technique. We need, for such amount of deal, we need a mixture of private and public money, and it must be not only one pledge; it must be something over generations, And so it's not without complexity. But we discussed a lot of options, and one very important precondition for options is that we need also a business case for investment in conservation. A business case for investment in conservation, and therefore we have a lot of work to do that because the Paris Agreement is not easy to handle these questions, this kind of deal. The RED, for example, is not suitable for many countries in the Congo Basin. So we need other instruments, and I think we are in discussions, but I think we have also to listen to our scientists how to make it really happen. But at least we identified three major tasks in the Congo Basin. This is first the sustainability of development. We have economic development. There is a lot of options also, but it must be sustainable. Sustainable forestry, sustainable agriculture, sustainable mining. But I think this is a very crucial point because we cannot make a big national park of the Congo Basin. It must be conservation and economic development together. So sustainability of development. The second point was and is restoration of landscapes. You can revalidate landscapes on a huge scale if you reinstall, if you make recovering these landscapes in an ecological sense, and then you can also make development, agricultural development, forestry development on this recovered landscapes. And third point, we need a new tool of financement for the forests in conservation, the protected areas, the high quality concessions and others pledged by the countries, by Cameroon, for example, by DRC. This must be a new sort of trust fund for the countries, not only for their protection work, but also as basis for their national economic development. So, of course, there are other preconditions, in my opinion. One really important precondition for the Congo Basin countries is, if you, Minister Dori, if you remember Glasgow, a very important precondition is coming to a policy of one voice. Yeah? The one voice policy for the Congo Basin is crucial, and this is the basis for a political success, for example, in Brazil. And on the other hand, of course, it is also necessary that you have a new attempt to bring a new order in this chaos of international cooperation. Yeah? We need really a better division of labor in the international concert of cooperation. If not, we lose so much money, so much efficiency, and so much time and energy for too few outcomes. I think we have a big chance if we find ourselves together in a common boat. By the way, we had a very good meeting with Chinese officials. They are also really part of the game, and we should be prepared. We should do our political homework, and we have for the next COP in Brazil a very mighty ally, because the Brazilians came up in July this year with exactly the same proposal, not technically the same, but the same narrative, the same consequences, and the same politics as the fair deal. And I think it's worthwhile to go parallel with the Brazilians, and then the Congo Basin is not alone in this narrative of the fair deal. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed, Christian. And thank you again for your long-term commitment to this issue and your many years of work. Now we're going to move into 3 presentations now of giving us a snapshot of research on the natural capital of the Congo Basin. Now, let me just start by explaining why this is important. We are used to countries measuring their economic wealth in terms of their gross domestic product. As a measure of economic activity, it's an important measure, but it also leaves out many important aspects of the wealth of countries. In particular, it leaves out the capital value. Now, we are used to concepts of financial capital. We are used to the concept of physical capital, the assets, the infrastructure you have. But there are also other very important aspects of capital. There is natural capital. They are the ecosystems and the biodiversity on which all human life depends. Without that natural capital, we don't survive. There is also human capital, the people who provide the services, who run your economy, who are the people you educate. All those are investments. And then there is social capital, and that's about the ability to run a country in a very coherent way so that you have trust in institutions. All these things are important measures of the wealth, and any measure that ignores those elements of capital is in danger of ignoring an important aspect of it. And the truth of the matter is that deforestation makes us all poorer. It degrades our wealth, particularly of the Congo Basin nations, but also of the entire population of the planet, because we all depend on the Congo Basin. So that is why it's so important to have a better understanding of the value of the natural capital of the Congo Basin nation. So we're now going to move to a series of presentations. I'm going to ask the presenters to try and keep to under 10 minutes so that we have a bit of time for discussion. So we're going to start with a colleague who's going to join us by Zoom, Dr. Ben Farwood. He's going to do a truly, and the next two presentations are going to be truly bilingual. So I think they will have their slides, PowerPoint slides will be in French, but they will speak in English. And Ben's going to talk, first of all, about his ongoing work measuring the natural capital in the Congo Basin. So, Ben, if you can hear us.
Yes,
And
can you hear me?
very good. And so if you have your earphones on, you should be able to hear him. So, Ben, over to you for your presentation. And as I said, if you can keep to under 10 minutes, that would be marvelous. So over to you, Ben.
Thanks very much. Did the sounds okay? The audio's okay? I hope you can hear me. Bonjour à tous. Merci pour votre attention aujourd'hui. J'aimerais pouvoir être là avec vous à Bakou. Mais c'est impossible pour moi. Je vais faire cette présentation en anglais, mais les slides seront en français. So today I'm going to show you some work that we are doing via the Grantham Institute at the LSE on the natural capital of the Congo Basin forests. So this is a work in progress. If you see places for improvement, I hope you will reach out after this event. Our work is about the distribution of natural capital. Who benefits from the ecosystem services it provides? We focus on services that actually have markets today. So if you lose some forest, we're trying to tell you what is the value of the wood you lose from the fire, of the bushmeat that you lose from the table. We are not trying to tell you things like what is the value of the idea of having a forest to people in America or in Europe. We also examine carbon, but here we're mostly interested in how the pricing mechanisms are. So what do we know already? We know that this is a globally important biome. We know it's also a biome which is changing rapidly. The countries we study, the Congo, Central African Republic, Cameroon, and Gabon, these countries are growing rapidly. They're adding 4 million people or more every year since 2020. The GDP is growing on average around 3% in recent years, sometimes as high as 8.5%. And we know that many people live in these forests. So it's no surprise that as each country grows, the forest also changes. About half of the total population lives within a kilometer or less of forest. About 13% actually live in the forest itself. But unfortunately, we know very, very little about the economic benefits the Congo Basin forests provide. There are only a few natural capital studies. And because of the lack of data, studies are forced to assume that data from other countries like the United States might apply in this region. So what we have done is to try to make a better guess, tied to primary data as much as possible. So the numbers that I show you, they may not always be correct, but they're always explainable. And if we can find better data, we can improve them. Now, because we want to avoid too many guesses, we study only ecosystem services that have markets now, because here we can at least observe some prices. Now, before I go on, I want to draw your attention to the figure on the left, which shows deforestation over the course of economic development in Britain, in France, and in the United States. Almost every country in the world has deforested or degraded over the course of development. And if the Congo Basin is to take a different path, there will be winners and there will be losers. And to study this, we have attempted a distribution analysis using comparable data that can be measured the same way in each country. We're trying to understand how different groups in each country benefit from the forests as they are used today. So our number, US 7.78 billion each year, that's 2019 dollars from direct economic services. I want to be very clear about what this number is. We are analyzing gross output, which is the volume of production times the unit value. So if you have 100 corn and you sell each cob for 1 cent, your gross output is $1. Many natural capital studies try to arrive instead at an asset value, and these are very different. I want you to think of the difference like this. When you hire a taxi, you are getting the value of a car for 1 day. When you buy a car, you're getting the value of the car for its expected lifetime, 10 years, 15 years, depends how you drive it. Gross output is like the taxi. We are measuring what is produced this 1 year. What is the output this year? The asset value is like purchasing the car. What's the present value of the stream of rents over the whole lifetime of that asset? And also, when we compare against GDP, we must be careful. We're accounting for direct things only. There's no indirect multipliers like consumer spending by employed households here. So our estimate, 7.78 billion in 2019, in that 1 year, that's about 6.25% of GDP measured directly in 1 year. In the table on the left, we give values per hectare in 2019 US dollars. And you can see here the different types of tenure we have studied. We look at statutory tenures enshrined in law, protected areas, forestry concessions, community forests. And we look at customary tenures, which are not legally protected, but are incredibly important in determining who benefits from the ecosystem services of the forest. Our calculations for forest concessions are not yet complete. Right now, we're using ITTO export value only. So if you look at this table, you can see some of the basic differences in value. The forest concessions are very important, but customary tenures, are very close behind. So why is this? It's because of all the services that these forests provide to local people, like fuel wood, like bushmeat, like timber for the domestic market. But what about the value for protected areas? This is not just the value of tourism. We are also trying to count the value that local people get from the borders of parks or by collecting fuel wood here. Now, to understand who is benefiting from each ecosystem service, we have to understand where these markets are. And this is at the core of our study. Our results are driven by the area of forest in each tenure type. And you can see we are studying only the economically accessible forests. This last column on the right in the top table, the residual, this is the area of forest in each country which is not in our study because it's too far away for people to derive economic benefits from. So our results are driven by areas of forest, and then they are driven by satellite data on forest dynamics, except for tourism where we use geotagged tourist photos. This is easy for statutory tenure, but for customary tenure, we don't have any maps. We have to make one. The figure on the right shows how we go about it. We are taking travel cost surfaces, building maps of travel times to villages, travel times to roads, the cities. And then we're taking recent work by the FAO that identified land uses for space. And we are sampling the travel time maps at those land uses. And we are creating a buffer in time rather than space. And you can see in the black streaking there how different these results are. Here's another view of our main results. This is our main results again, but this time we are showing the total values. So this is millions US dollars in 2019. The values that flow from each ecosystem service in each category of tenure. So to look at this very quickly, let's look at the margins. The total column in the right is showing how many millions here are category of tenure. And then we give it as percent of GDP. Personally, I think the customary tenure category is extremely interesting, as is the open access area. And I hope you will remember that there are I hope you can hear me okay. I have a lot of sound back on the presentation, so my apologies if this sound is not clear. I think you will also be interested in the large number at the bottom of the column. Why is this number?
The other one has 7 hours to go. Okay. And the third one?
We are estimating bushmeat using per capita consumption rates, which are different for people and rural people, but it's very hard to find price data. So our unit prices for bushmeat are quite uncertain. The regional result I showed you is built up from country tables. We've done the same analysis for each country. Finally, I would like to address a really difficult topic here. How much is the carbon worth? So to know that, you have to know how many units of carbon you are producing. And as recent events in the voluntary carbon market very clearly, it's very hard to define a unit of mitigation. We don't have time to talk about that today. In our analysis, we've compared two different ways of defining a unit of mitigation. The first one is like what REDD programs do now. We take a historical average as some reference level. We compare our accounting year against that. So in the figure on the right, we're seeing the accounting year is 2019. We can compare that against the average of the prior 5 years. That's the gray line, and the difference is A. And you're below that gray line, so you have a debit here. But we know that trends in forest cover in countries are not flat lines. So we fit a curve, like the curve we have seen in developed countries over history. We get that red line, and we compare 2019 against that red line. We get area B, and here we have a credit. So totally different results. And I really want to emphasize that our carbon numbers are about understanding the implications of different accounting mechanisms, different financing mechanisms. We're measuring above ground carbon only, and we're not trying to arrive at the physically most accurate picture of carbon stocks and carbon flows in the forest. I believe the next presentation will address. These results are about accounting mechanisms. And you can see, as depending on how you set up the accounting, you get very, very different results. So here, over the 2014 to 2015 period, evaluating the year 2019, if you compare against the flat average, method A, the results are not good. Carbon stocks are lower. Countries would be, it's ludicrous, but they would be on the hook for carbon payments. If you put a trend, the situation improved. The last measure we're using is the net flux. And here, there's no baseline, there's no counterfactual. We're observing the exchange between the forest and the atmosphere each year as trees grow and sequester carbon, as forests grow, as forests are lost. Completely different accounting methods. And so we're interested in the distributional results of that. Responding to Bob's request to be quick, I'll go straight ahead to my last words here. I want to stress that our estimates are lower bounds. We don't include many things. We don't include non-timber forest products. We don't include fish. There's no data. The local provisioning services and the global regulating services that we know are so important, putting an economic value is incredibly contentious. We haven't done that in this study. Finally, we see many places where we can improve these estimates, and we're very excited about the potential for combining targeted data collection with machine learning methods to scale up quickly to arrive at better, more credible estimates in a year or two, not far off in the future. I'd be happy to talk about that with anyone later on. Thank you very much. Merci pour votre attention.
Thank you very much indeed, Ben. And I hope we'll have time for some questions, but I'm going to move on to the next presentation. And then we'll hopefully, if you can stay on the line, Ben, if there is time for questions, if there's a question for him. We're now going to move on to Professor Omugu, who is the director of the Cameroon National Climate Change Observatory. So Professor Omugu, please come to the stage and tell us about your work.
C'est bon? Excellence, Monsieur le ministre de l'Environnement, de la Protection de la Nature et du Développement durable. Excellence, Monsieur le ministre des Forêts, de la Faune. Monsieur le secrétaire exécutif de la COMIFA. Messieurs les secrétaires généraux du ministère de l'Environnement et du ministère des Finances. I was told that taking into consideration the fact that it is an English organization who is organizing this side event, I was told that I have to make my presentation in English. So before starting, I will remind to Cameroonian and those who are not Cameroonian that in Cameroon, we had a wonderful writer. His name was Ferdinand Oyono. He wrote a novel, a book. The title of the book was The Old Niger and the Medel. It was about a medal who was given to an old man, and during the moment they had to do it, there was a moment during which a student had to sing the national anthem. It was during the colonial period. For the colonial administration, the students were singing in a local language. For the local community, the students were singing in French. So I hope that at the end of my presentation, we will not have the same impression because of the quality of my English. Coming back to the since the beginning of the discussion today, we were talking about the valorization of the potential of Congo Basin region. This is the big question. But the question is, how can we valorize something we do not know the quantity, or something we do not know the quality? We are trying to share with you an experience of quantification of the carbon potential of a country. The country is Cameroon. So I will start by proposing you to tell you who are we? What is the National Observatory? The second element will be which methodology was used to evaluate the carbon potential of Cameroon. And the third element is the result of the carbon potential for every agroecological zones of Cameroon and the challenges. Who are we? Everything started in 2007. I think that the Minister Hele was there. In New York, there was a summit of head of state on climate change. The head of state of Cameroon announced the creation of the National Observatory. And in 2009, before going to Copenhagen, he signed a decree creating the National Observatory. And in 2000, which was the National Observatory, ONAC, was defined as a public establishment with a legal and financial autonomy placed under the technical supervision of the Ministry of Environment and the financial supervision of the Ministry of Finance. In 2015, the operationalization of the ONAC started through the designation of the manager team. In 2019, there was a reorganization of the National Observatory, and it became a public establishment with a scientific and technical character, and that of the director became the general manager, and so on and so on. What is the global mission of the National Observatory on Climate Change? The global mission is to monitor and assess the socio-economical, economic and environmental impact of climate change and propose measures to prevent, mitigate, or adapt to the adverse effect and risk associated with climate change. That mission is divided to two actions. For the adaptation, it is the production of climatological information or climatological services, which are the base on which you can facilitate the adjustment of the activity that you are doing. The mitigation, it is the monitoring and evaluation of greenhouse gases emission in Cameroon. The National Observatory has different specific mission, monitor climate change, collect, analyze and produce reference information on climate change for the different sectors of the economy, to conduct annually a greenhouse gas inventory for the different socio-economic sector in the 5 agroecological zones of the country, to propose and preventive measure as well as mitigation or adaptation measure to the government regarding greenhouse gas emission, adverse effect, and associated with climate change. So, how do we make the work to evaluate the carbon potential of our country? The first thing to be done is the data collection. It means that experts of the National Observatory, they go to different administration where the action has an impact on the emission of greenhouse emission. So they go and meet stakeholders, the Ministry of Forestry, the Ministry of Agriculture, the Ministry of Livestock, and other sectors. They look at the document which exists, document coming from different administration, like Institute of Statistics, Copernicus, and so on. You use tools like geomatic science, which allow to have the cover of forest, and so on. On the soil, you have to go and collect sample in all the territory of Cameroon. All those data are used to be analyzed using here the IPCC guidelines. At the base of all this, you can have in the treatment of those information, you have to use the factor, the emission factor proposed by the IPCC. How do we collect example? In all the territory of Cameroon, we create what we can call, I don't know, area, we define area where we go and collect soil. The collection of soil is done from 0 to 30 centimeters and from 30 centimeters to 60 centimeters. This is done in every, I think that is moving now. Vous voyez le point rouge, non? Oui. So we do 5 by 5 kilometers, and in every part of it, we collect those data as we just said. The soil collected is given in a laboratory, the laboratory of the Ministry of Agriculture, who will make the analysis, and they will inform us about the quantity of carbon that you have in the soil from 0 to 30 centimeters, and from 30 centimeters to 16. We make an analysis of the use of the land in the different agroecological zones. We have Here you have a case. This is the occupation of the soil in the littoral in Douala. And we will see that if you take the red part from this period to another, you will see that the space occupied for the construction of houses and so on, the space was occupied for culture is increasing. Here you have it, everything is green, but when you pass to the other map, the north part of the map is yellow. What shows that the space occupied for agriculture is increasing. And the table here is showing that, what is increasing and what is declining. With all those elements and information, now we use the formula of estimation of greenhouse gas emission proposed by the IPCC. The estimation emission of CO2 is equal to the data multiplied by the factor of emissions. And you will see that the activities, which are the data of emission and the emission factors, gives us at the end of the day the estimation of emissions. The result of our work is showing this. The sequestration potential of in the bimodal rainfall agroecological zones, where you have the region of the center, the region of the east, the region of the south, is showing that the emissions are around 251,770 gigagram CO2 equivalent, and the absorption are around minus 2,579,827 gigagram CO2 equivalent. So, at the end of the day, the potential recoverable carbon is around minus 2,328,056 gigagram CO2 equivalents. That is the potential carbon that we can valorize in these agroecological zones. Now, if you go to the monomodal rainfall agroecological zones, the emissions are around 29,717 gigagram CO2 equivalents, and the absorption are around minus 345,316 gigagram CO2 equivalent. And this represents a potential recoverable carbon around minus 545 gigagram CO2 equivalent. If you go now in the Sudano-Sahelian area, which is the north, the south of Lake Chad, the extreme north and the north of Cameroon, that potential, That potential is around minus 559,044 gigagram CO2 equivalent. If you go in the Adamawa region, which is the Guinea Heights Savannah agroecological zones, that potential is around 500,077,646 gigagram CO2 equivalent. And if you go now in the high plateau agroecological zone, which is the mountain side of Cameroon, that potential is around minus 313,055 gigagram CO2 equivalent. And when we make the bilan for all the 5 agroecological zones, the potential is around 4,093,348 gigagram CO2 equivalent. At the end of the day, we see that the result of the work done by the National Observatory, those results are not so far for the estimation done by other organizations. For example, FAO in 2013 is showing that potential is around 4,600,000 gigagram CO2 equivalent, and UICN is showing from 1,300,000 gigagram CO2 equivalent to 6,600,000 gigagram CO2 equivalent. And the estimation done by the National Observatory for the fat sector is around 4,093,348 gigagram CO2 equivalent in 2022. At the end of the day, we listen to everybody today. From the intervention of different speakers today, everybody is saying that there is a potential. There is a potential, but the question and the challenge is how to move from this carbon potential to the valorization. And this is the challenge. That is the exercise that you have to solve. If you listen to the gentleman who was speaking from, I don't know, from England or US, the expert, if you listen to you and others, the question is, how do we move forward? How do we move from the potential to concrete money, which is useful for the socio-economical development of our country, of our region? The second element is how to use this carbon potential to reinforce the process of cocoa zero deforestation and other processes. European Union took a certain number of decisions. But at the end of the day, when you see the real potential in the different division of our country, the different agroecological zones, you see that we have more absorption than emission. What means that we cannot talk about a lot of forest deforestation. And another study done by the National Observatory is showing this. The area where you have a big rate of deforestation, the north of Cameroon, where there is a big need of afforestation, is there that you have something around 1% to 2% of deforestation. But when we are planting cocoa, in the different basin of production of cocoa, the level of deforestation is not the one which is strong. So this work can be useful for our country in the negotiation with European Union. The third challenge is this: how do you use this potential to improve our GDP? If you listen very well to the expert who was talking about the different potential, the question today is, what is the value of our carbon potential in our GDP? How do we integrate globally first the question of climate change in the socio-economical management governance of the economy of our country, and how do we integrate the question of potential carbon potential in this? The number 4 challenge is, how do we improve the technical and the technological capacity of ONAC and the country for the monitoring of the natural capital. And talking about the natural capital, you have the carbon, you have the biodiversity, you have the water resources, and so on. We heard the Minister of Forestry talking about it, for the efficient valorization of our potential. You cannot valorize something we do not know. You cannot cannot use efficiently something that you do not know. The last challenge is developing Cameroon's carbon potential remains a challenge. Party institutions like CBC can accompany countries like Cameroon and other countries of the Congo Basin region. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you very much indeed, Professor Amugo, for sharing your latest research from the observatory and the very important calculations. Now, we are overrunning, and out of respect for the following group group, I'm going to invite Minette to give her contribution as quickly as she can, possibly, and then we won't have time for discussion, unfortunately. But Minette, if you can come up and deliver your presentation as quickly as you think you can, and then we will close. So thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Hello, everyone. I'm happy this afternoon to share this work we are preparing at the moment in support to the fair deal discussion going on in the Congo Basin. Uh, it's entitled, as you can see, A Fair Deal for Sustainable Development of Congo Basin Countries and Protection of the Rainforest. We have divided this presentation in 4 sections: the background, the natural capital, the earnings of Congo Basin countries, and what could be a fair compensation for Congo Basin countries. Background is just a reminder, all of us we know that Congo Basin is the second most important rainforest in the world after the Amazon, with a huge carbon conservation capacity and a very rich biodiversity. Congo Basin countries' main regional institution is COMIFAC, Commission des Forêts d'Afrique Centrale, representing 6 countries: Democratic Republic of Congo, Central African Republic, Cameroon, Equatorial Guinea, and Gabon. Now we are moving to the estimate of the natural capital. As Ben said before, this is the asset, the overall estimate. And we are having our numbers from World Bank, Changing World of Nations, 2021 and 2024. And the estimate is about 380 billion, divided in 4 categories: timber resources, forest ecosystem, protected areas, and mangroves. Now, we are coming to what Congo Basin countries earn from timber trade, what they earn in 2023 from timber trade. And as you can see, the first column is showing us the contribution of timber trade to their GDP. As you can see, Cameroon is 3%. I mean, this is in percentages: 3%, 11, 17, 1.5 for Equatorial Guinea, Gabon 3, Republic of Congo 4. And the last column is in $billion. The total contribution of timber trade to the GDP piece of Congo Basin countries in 2023 is 16 billion. 16 billion. Now we are moving to the next slide on what could be a fair compensation for Congo Basin countries. We all know that in 2021, they had this pledge one, an agreement where they got 1.5 billion, I mean, to support sustainable development in Congo Basin. And we are moving towards COP30 in Belém. The discussion at the moment in Congo Basin is, what are we doing after 2025? Because the first pledge was ending in 2025. Discussion are going on, and Climate Focus, in partnership with COMIFAC, WWF, they published a report saying that 1.5 million is not enough. And they suggested 5 billion per year for the Congo Basin countries, 5 billion US dollars. And we are very happy to have this event and having the chance to have Minister Ndongo, Dr. Rook, and Minister Hele. We are planning to publish our policy brief at the beginning of next year. And we were not very comfortable with the 5 billion. So we want to, ask if we could comfortably publish our policy brief with this number. Could 5 billion USD per year be enough for Congo Basin countries as compensation? Having said this, I think because we are running out of time, I'm moving. This is the end of my presentation, and I wanted to ask something quickly. I'm really asking us to try and change a bit our vocabulary because we are talking a lot about compensation. But at the moment, people are talking much more about investment. Donors are more open to contribute when you are talking about investment. Investment means that you are sharing benefits. You understand what I mean? So I'll be asking all of us to try and shift a bit from compensation to investment. And it will be a fair deal because investors are having a benefit and we are also having a benefit in Congo Basin. This ends my presentation. Bob, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much indeed, Minette, and thank you for doing that presentation in a record time. I'd like to thank all the speakers for having provided so much rich material for discussions. I particularly want to pay tribute to those who've spoken in English to make this as accessible as possible. Recognize there are many French speakers here for whom this was not optimal, but we're hoping that we can continue to drive a discussion. Next year in Brazil, there will be a lot of focus on the rainforest in the Amazon. Our ambition is that we use the next 12 months to put a spotlight on the importance of the Congo Basin as well, and about the need, as Minette mentioned, that the world understands that the money spent on helping drive sustainable development in the Congo Basin nations and protecting the forest is an investment. It's an investment because we all get returns from it. And it's an investment that we should all recognize as being extremely good value as well as being a fair deal. We hope to carry on this work and we will hope to see many of you in Belém at COP30, where we will present updates on our work. And we will also share with you the policy brief that we are preparing at the moment. I'd like to thank in particular Minister Ndondo and also Minister Elliott for their presence today. And I hope you all have a good and productive remaining COP. So thank you.
That's it. Steps.